Just having a nosy around the UK. Does everybody hear me all right? I think. Can you hear me now? Yeah, good. Fantastic, thank you. We're having a few technical glitches today, but it just makes it for a more interesting webinar, doesn't it? So, who's here for the first time? Anyone here for the first time? Welcome, Tessa, Tracy, Sandra. Oh, quite a few of you. Welcome. And anyone here that's been to one of my trainings before? Oh, a few. Also, we've got a lovely mix then. So the people that have been here for the first time, you'll find that it's quite a nice place to be. We do have hopefully, I think, well, at least you're coming back, so it can't be that bad. And has everyone got busier before Christmas at this time, or are you winding down now? Because it tends to work in two ways, doesn't it? Whether you wind, which is that, Amy? You're getting busier, or you're winding down? Oh, we've got some winding down. Oh, nice, winding down. Busy. Amy's getting busier. Very busy, as always, so it's not changed, or it's getting more. People getting busier, some winding down. Isn't it funny how it's one or the two? Oh, we've got a never wind down there. No, I understand how you feel. So either way, I hope you're having at least a bit of time to enjoy the Christmas coming up. So thank you so much for coming along. Today we are going to be talking about how to plan your own development. And let me tell you why I chose this topic. Hang on, let me mess about with slides. I've always been a bit of a planner. In fact, at this time of year, and I don't know whether I'm alone in this, so do please let me know if you're the same. And I've done this for as long as I can remember, to be honest. I get a brand new notebook. I've always been a bit of a notebook freak. I love my notebooks. And I plan everything that I want to achieve in the following year. So is this just me? I'm hoping that I'm in good company. And for the longest time, I got into the habit of just brainstorming what I wanted to do. And then, surprise, surprise, sometimes I got some things done, and other times I didn't. And then with the things that I didn't, I carried these over to the following year. And when I did that, it didn't always feel that great. In fact, it usually left me feeling quite rubbish. Can anyone relate at all? And one year, I looked at my list, and to be honest, I felt a bit fed up. Yeah, that's what you do, Michelle. I'm glad it's not just me. And one year I looked at my list, and I felt a bit fed up because it really just didn't hit the mark for me. It felt like I'd just got loads of goals on the page, and that was it. And so I changed the way that I did it, and lo and behold, I actually got a lot more done the following year, and at the end of the year, I actually felt really good. So in that same year, I then realised that although I was planning for personal and professional goals, I wasn't really taking into account my own development. Now, this was a bit ironic for me when I realised it, because obviously the nature of the job that I do. I've been in learning and development for all of my career, and that's coming up to 20 years now. So planning development is something that's really close to my heart, because if we don't take charge of where we want to be and growing ourselves, then who is? And I realised that I was always busy supporting other people with their development, but I wasn't focusing on myself. And as a manager, that's often the case. Can anyone relate to this, where you feel as though you're developing your team, but you never really focus on yourself properly or invest that same amount of time in yourself? Yeah, we've got some yep, all the time. Brilliant. So today I want to share with you how I go about planning my development every year, why you really need to be doing that, and how you can stick to it as well. So all in the hope that we're going to end the year strong, and we're going to start next year with a bang, and that you might get something that will work for you too. But before I do this, for those of you that have not worked with me before, I just want to tell you a little bit about who I am. So I'm a leadership coach and trainer and a writer, and I work with managers at all levels, from team leaders and supervisors right through to directors and business owners. And I've been doing this for over 6 years, although I've been in learning and development for, as I said, for nearly 20 years now. And I started my journey in retail, where I did 12 years as a training manager, and then I started my own consultancy right at the start of the recession in 2010. And over the years, I've had the pleasure of working in lots of different businesses and with a lot of different leaders at all levels of their careers, so from team leaders, supervisors, right the way up to directors and business owners. And it's something that I absolutely love to do. Excuse me. In fact, over the years, I've worked with hundreds of managers, helping them feel more confident and capable to manage their people effectively. And this is something that I am really passionate about, because I believe that managers and leaders are the key players in any business. So I do this by coaching people on a one-to-one basis, either face-to-face or via Skype or on the phone. I also run a management program which is aimed at team leaders, supervisors and middle managers. And as well as these programs, I run webinars like this one. So I run a free webinar every single month, and I have a weekly blog. And I've just launched a book which is now on Amazon called The Boss Hat, and I also have an online program of the same name. So if any of that interests you, please come on over and join me at BARBARA.NIXON.co.uk, or you can join me on Facebook, Twitter or LinkedIn if you're around social media. So for those of you that it's your first time with me today, I just want to give you a bit of heads up on what you can expect from this training, or just from working with me in general. I'm very much about learning without feeling overwhelmed. So I know only too well that it can be tempting when you come on training like this, because you might want to go away and implement everything. And that's fantastic, it's music to my ears. But what usually happens is it's just not realistic, because you have got a day job to do as well. And then you end up implementing nothing and just slipping back into your old comfy ways. So in order to sidestep this, have a go at just keeping in mind one thing that would add most value. So the one gem for you, and focus on that. And you can always come back later and do something else once you've nailed the first thing. Okay, does that make sense for everybody? Is everybody happy? So before I launch straight in, I just want to ask a very quick question. Is your main priority for attending this webinar for developing yourself or developing your team? So if you just want to put self or team. Self. Phew, I'm really pleased to hear that. Everybody here for the self? Fantastic, that's brilliant. A bit of both, that's fine. Yeah, that's okay. Because today we are going to be a bit selfish. We're going to be focusing on how to plan your development. And if you are interested, I know a couple of you have said both, which is fine. You can always ask your team to listen to this webinar and use the process for themselves too. So when we talk about our development, for most of us, like I said earlier, it's not really a top priority, unfortunately, because we're either too busy doing everything else on our to-do list, just doing our day job. We might be busy focusing on our teams and supporting them in their development, as we've already said, or we might be secretly hoping that our manager will raise the issue of our development, just like what we do with our teams, so that we get some support and are forced into looking at it. Which of those is probably your main driver for not focusing on your development? And you can be honest in the chat. I think for those of you that have not been on a session before, I forgot to mention that when we send out the recordings, we don't send out the chat, so nobody can see this. So I do mention people as I go along, just as I'm chatting. We've got too busy doing everything else. Busy, yep, first point, busy with the day job. Fair enough. Yeah. Now the problem with this, and I completely relate, I have been in that position for a long time actually, but the problem with this is that time still passes, doesn't it? And what we have to do is be the CEO of our own career. We just can't afford to let it slide, because I know we've all been there where days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months, and here we are in December, and I can remember this time last year, you know, and it just goes so fast. So if we're not careful, we just won't get round to it. So we can't afford to let it slide, and we can't afford to just hope that our manager will sort it out for us, because it is our development, it's our career, and if we think it's important, and clearly we all do because we're all here, then we really need to be planning it out properly. Because you've probably all heard the saying, what gets measured gets done. And I like this saying because I actually agree with it. And so as from today, it's time to start measuring it effectively and putting in a proper plan for yourself. So just be a little bit selfish, if you like, or a bit self-indulgent just for today. And the other issue when it comes to planning development is that it does soon fall off a cliff. And even though we plan it out, and even though you might end today with a beautiful plan, and it's all well thought out, and you're really happy with it, life can happen. Like we've all said, we're just busy doing everything else. And as I've just said, you know, your days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months, and we've just not kept on top of it. Anyone done that before, where you've actually planned your development before, but you've just not kept on top of it? Yeah. And me too. Yeah. I was in exactly the same boat. So we are going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about how you actually stick to it, because I have been in that boat more than once, probably more times than I care to remember, to be honest. And that's exactly why I changed the way that I planned. And what I'm going to show you today really works for me, and I'm going to hope it works for you. But remember, if it doesn't, feel free to tweak until it does. Now, for this webinar, there was a free worksheet. Did everybody get that? Yeah, we've all got that. Brilliant. You can, if you wanted to, print it out, or you can fill it in online if you don't want to print it. Entirely up to you. But for today, for the next, I don't know how long we've got left, half an hour, 15, 20 minutes, we are going to have a go at doing this together. Now, I will say we are going to, obviously we're restricted in terms of time, so we are going to go through it together, but please do make some time to do this on your own when you've got a bit more time and you can think about it properly. Is everybody all right with that? Right then, the very first place to start, if you've all got your handouts, is to reflect on the previous year. Now, I know this might seem a bit backward, but I do want you to trust me on this. The reason we look back before we look forward is to reflect on what's worked well and what you've achieved and just how far you've come. Now, I want you to, whilst I'm talking to you, I want you to just have a quick scribble, and just in bullet points, and you're aiming for at least 3 to 5 things that you've achieved this year that you're happy with in terms of your development. So it could be, have you done a project where you had a steep learning curve? You might have had a promotion where you've had to learn a lot. You might have gone on a program or some training of some kind. Did you have a mentor or a coach? Did you get some books and do some more reading than usual? Did you subscribe to a few blogs? Did you come on a few of these webinars? It can be anything. It doesn't have to be paid for things. So just think of 3 to 5 things that you've actually done which has moved on your development. And the reason for this is quite often when we're planning, we dive straight into what we want to do differently or what we want to achieve. And we don't often take time out to think and celebrate what we've actually done so far. But this is a really good practice to get into. And I do want to encourage you to do it on a regular basis going into next year. And let me explain my reasoning for this. A while back, I was looking through the goals that I'd set for the year. So remember this notebook that I always bought. So it was about November time, and I was looking through the goals that I'd set for the year, and I realised that I'd not achieved anything. I mean, not a single thing. And I was looking through everything. I thought, do you know what? I felt really gutted, if I'm perfectly honest, because I'd just not achieved anything. And because that particular year, other things had happened. And we all know what it's like. You know, life moves on and things change. And for a brief moment, I kind of sat there staring at my notebook, and I felt really hacked off and disappointed, as I'd just not done anything that I planned. And like I said, it was about November time, so I felt like I'd just wasted the whole year. And then I found myself thinking, but what did I do then? I didn't just, do nothing. I have been busy, and I felt really busy this year. What did I do? And so I forced myself in that minute to write a list of all the things that I could remember that I'd actually achieved. So whether it was personal or professional, so things I actually wanted to get done in terms of my development. And you know what? The list was pages long, because even though I'd not done anything that I'd planned, I had still done stuff because I'd pivoted and my life had changed, and so my development goals had changed, but I'd still achieved something. Does that make sense? So in that minute, I actually created for myself what I now call a celebration journal. And I know it might sound a bit pink and fluffy, and you can call it what you like, but hear me out. It's just a notebook. That's all it is, where I now scribble down what I have achieved on a regular basis. And it can be super small stuff, or it can be things that are a lot bigger. But either way, by doing this, like I say, on a regular basis, and I'm talking bullet points, it's not like massive journal entries, it really helps you to keep the momentum all year long, and it'll help you still feel like you're achieving, even when things have kind of gone a little bit off-piste. Because what this really helps you to do is take stock of all the good stuff that you actually do, even when, like I say, you've not done what you planned. And it stops you feeling like you've had a wasted year at the end. So you actually end the year feeling really good about what you've achieved instead. So, and that's the whole point of having a reflection. So taking stock of what you've actually done and feeling great about it. So now that we've reflected on last year, we've all got about 3 to 5 bullets on there. If anybody wants to share, please feel free. It's always nice to see what everybody's up to. But you don't have to. It's entirely up to you. So now that you've reflected on last year, 3 is fine. Yeah, 3 is fine. And remember, we're doing this fast. It might be later, but you think, oh, I did that as well. I'd forgotten about something. So yeah, now that we've reflected on last year, step 2 is deciding what you want to be this time next year. So let's pretend that you can peek into the future exactly 12 months from now. So what would you see? What would you be doing that's different? What would you want to know that you don't already know? How is that you in the future different to the you that's sat here listening to me today? And again, have a think and just scribble it down on your handout in the middle of your giant bubble that you've got on your second page. So just put that in the middle, and it could be something simple. It doesn't have to be anything, extravagant or huge. It could be that you want to work towards having a new job. You might want to work towards having a promotion. You might want to do something completely different. You might just want to learn more and develop some new skills. You might want to enhance your current role and upskill yourself in your current job. So have a think, is there something you've always wanted to do? Like you might want a qualification or some training. There are literally tons of possibilities here, but have a think about what that is for you. So you're just looking at one thing of where you want to be, okay? And if you're struggling with visualising where you want to be because you might be more than happy in your current job, for example, have a think about what you want to improve about yourself in your role, or what feedback you've had that you want to act on, or even if there's something that you've always wanted to learn just to make your role a bit easier, or if you're avoiding something because you're not all that confident with it. Now, I just want to mention here is that this step is just designed to focus your mind, because we're going to drill down in a second. So all it's doing is drilling in your mind what the ultimate goal is. So we're going to use the example going forward of just upskilling in my current job. And that might be the same for you, or it might be work towards getting promoted. So just one-liner in there. It doesn't need to be complicated, like I said, but just make sure you get something in there. And once you've done that, so I'll give you a minute. Has everybody got something in there? Just give me a yes if you've got something in there. Brilliant. Yeah. New job. Yeah. Brilliant. Yes, got it. Fantastic. If at any point you need more time, then just tell me to tell me to stop talking for a minute so you can scribble things down. So once you've done that, the next step is to have a think about what you need to get there. So this is what we're looking at. This is the example. So I'm going to just use upskilling current role. So the next thing is we're going to think of 4 things, so no more than 4 things that you need to do to develop towards that goal. So I'm sure you can think of 100 things that you want to do. I'm going to just restrict you to 4 things, if that's okay. Because one of the things that I see time and time again, and you might have been guilty of this, I know I have, is that you want to achieve loads of stuff. But let's just be kind to ourselves, you know, and let's be realistic, because we want to get it done. And it's better to do 4 things well than loads of things not very well. So if ideally where you want to be next year is the next level up, for instance, you might pick out all the areas that you know right now you need to develop outside your bubble. So each line outside the bubble gets another thing. So the things that you need to be mindful of is that sometimes you might not know what you need to develop in order to get your goal, and that's okay. So one of your tasks could be do some research or get some feedback or chat to somebody. So let's look at an example. Oh, going back. So if we're going to talk about upskilling in the current role, so you might have work with a mentor, get some feedback, attend some webinars or attend a training program. Just as things that you might want to do. Okay? Again, you could be thinking about is there anything you know that you want to learn or develop to upskill? Is there anything that you've been wanting to learn? Is there any feedback that you've got? Are you falling short in some way and you want to improve that? So whatever it might be for you, just scribble down a point for each line around your bubble as best as you can. Everybody done that? Yeah. Well, I like your shorthand now. Yep. Brilliant. Fantastic. So we've all got them. If anybody wants to share, please feel free. But you don't have to. But you know if you want to. Right. So far we've reflected on last year. We've got where we're heading, and we've got a few things that we need to be focusing on. So we need to drill down even further. So I'm just looking back at the chat. So you want to get better at data analysis. Brilliant. So that's one of your bullets. Love it. Right, on the next page of your handout, you're going to find a plan. Now, this is where we start to drill it down into what specifically we need to do. So why we want to do it, what's the value for us, what's the value for the company, how long it's going to take, how much is it going to cost, whether you need something else in place to help you or someone to help you, whether you need to block out some time on a regular basis. And the reason that we're doing this is, let me just move the slide on, sorry. The reason we're doing this is that it's going to show you a few things that our brains actually need to know to keep us on the right track. So in order to explain, let me go back a step and ask you a question. What is one of the reasons you don't keep to your development plan? So is it that things change, and we're just talking about, I know you're busy and you said that you've just got lots to do, but is it that things change and you get overwhelmed, or is it just that you get really, really busy? So which of those is it? If you had to choose one. Why does it slip off a cliff for you? So it's always time. Priorities change, yeah, time goes by. Okay. Now with the first thing, and I think somebody mentioned, or a couple of you have mentioned change, things will actually change. We are always going to be needing to pivot. And that's why one, we keep a celebration journal to keep track of what we've done instead. And two, that's why our development plan isn't set in cement. It is a working document, and you can swap and change things. And I'm going to show you a trick to that in a second. But once you've created your plan, try not to think of it as set in stone. You know, if things change, if things move on, then by all means, scribble it out and write it again. We don't have to wait for the new year to start a development plan. It is a moving feast. Now, the second point of getting overwhelmed, I don't know whether, a couple of you have said overwhelmed, is it is actually a lot more common than you might think. Quite often we set off and we plan with great intentions, and we might put loads of things on our plan, and we don't often take into account all the other millions of things that we've got to do every day. And then when we actually do get round to it, we either feel daunted because we need to do some research and that we have to actually do stuff in order to get the development, or we might have missed the deadline of a program or training, or we don't have enough information, we can't justify the funding, or we can't justify the value, or actually sometimes you just forget why you wanted to do it in the first place. So by going through this piece of the planning process, it actually helps you get a lot further in the long run as you take away a lot of the reasons why you might get overwhelmed. And you've done the detail ahead of time, especially if time is an issue. And I know a few of you have said that. Because you're so busy, you're not ever going to be not busy. So make your development plan, do your planning now so that when you actually get round to it, you've got it all in place. So this part of the process you might want to do at a later stage when you've got a bit more time. Or if, as I'm talking, you can scribble it down very quickly. But you've got your plan of what you want to do, you know why you want to do it, and for a lot of people, this is where the development plans actually stop, and you'd be expected to get on with it. Has anybody been in that place before where this is where the planning actually stops? So once you've done this bit, you've done. Anyone done that before? Yeah, and that's exactly what I did as well. Yes, yeah, lots of yeses. But for now, we're going to keep going. We've got other things to do. Now, let me explain. A lot of things can happen in a year. In fact, even though a year goes really, really fast, it's actually quite a long time, isn't it? And we all know that a lot of things can happen in it. So we now have to break it down so that it works for us. And this is going to stop us feeling overwhelmed. I know a couple of you have said that. It's going to massively increase our chance of success. It's going to allow for change next year. So a few of you have already said that. And it's going to give us space to change our mind and pivot if we want to. It's also going to be much more achievable and less overwhelming for those of you that are pushed with time. Now, before I go on to explain how to do this, I just want to address the final point, which is it allows us space to change our mind and pivot if we want to. Because over the years, and I've said this before, I've seen it happen quite a lot where someone sticks rigidly to their development plan, even though things are changing and they might not really want to do it anymore. And the same goes for our personal plans and our ambitions and our goals. So, for example, excuse me, you might put down learn a language on your things to do each year, but you never actually get round to it. Has anyone put anything on their development plan in the past and then not done it? Because this is the time to be really, really honest with ourselves. It's about, do we actually want to do the things that we've written down? Will they actually make us happy? Will you actually be motivated to do it? Because if not, just take it off your list, because chances are you're not going to get it done anyway. So if you always find yourself writing something down in your development plan that you've just not got round to, so those of you that said yes, do you then carry it over to the next year? Because I used to do that. Just take it off and replace it with something else. Make your mind up and decide whether you really want to do it, or whether it's just a habit putting it on there and you wanted to do it at one point, and replace it with something else. And I'll give you a personal example. I went through a period of about 3 years of writing Learn Italian on my development plan. Anyone else wanted to learn a language and written that down before? Now, the furthest I got to doing this was to download an app, but I never, ever opened it. It just stayed on my phone forever. I even saw a local cafe that was 2 minutes from where I live, and they were having informal Italian lessons for nothing. But do you know how many times I went? 0. I never, ever went. Not once. So then one year I thought, I don't know why I'm always putting this down, so I crossed it off. Now, it doesn't mean to say I'll never do it, but it just means that I don't want to do it right now. And so I replaced it with something that I really did want to do. So if this is you, just before you commit to any plan, just be honest and think, actually, do I really actually want to do this? So now you've got your full plan for the whole year, it's time to split this down into 4. So you're going to write a section for each quarter of the year, and that's why we've got 4 things. So one of those things, if we go back to the previous thing, let me just scroll back there. Each one of those is going to happen in a quarter of the year. So, for example, if you know that you've got a deadline to enrol in a program in March, then that development is quarter 1. So, attend a training program is quarter 1. If you know that during the summer your department is actually quiet, then that might be a good idea to get a mentor. So that might become quarter 3. So you put them in order of what you're going to do throughout the year. So 1 becomes quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. Does that make sense? So you're just splitting them down. That makes sense? Yeah. And the reason for this is it just becomes a lot more achievable, because even though you've got all of these and they look quite small, so work with a mentor might seem quite small on the face of it, there's an awful lot that goes into that. So you've got to find a mentor, you've got to approach a mentor, you've got to have the meetings. So that's enough to be getting on with, and you can get an awful lot of value from that one bullet in just 3 months. Because if you have more than one goal in each quarter, you can do that. It's perfectly fine. It's your development plan. Do that, provided it doesn't get overwhelming, because as soon as it gets overwhelming, you're going to not do it. And you are busy. Like I said, your workload is not going to go down, so you're still going to have to do things. Now, I just want to mention something, is that even though you might enroll on a course in quarter 1, it might take you 12 months to complete a program, for instance. And you might be thinking, well, I've enrolled then, but I'm not. It's a 2-year course, so it's going to cross, the other quarters, which is fine. The target is the enrolment, because then you're in, you're committed, you've invested, and the chances of you actually completing it are much higher. So always aim for the enrolment as your target if it's a course or program you want to do. Does that make sense? I know I'm asking you a lot of them, does that make sense? But does that make sense to you? Yeah, good. So now that you've split it into manageable chunks, you then need to break it down into steps. So for each of these 4 bullets, break it down into exactly what you need to do. So with, let's use if I wanted to learn Italian on my own. So step 1 might be download an app, step 2 might be diarise when I'm going to listen to it, step 3 might be test myself, step 4 I might go to some lessons. Let me think. If I wanted to do a college course, I might have to, step 1 might be research the course, I might, step 2 apply, step 3 get the budget, step 4 go to college, and so on. So for each of these, you're actually going to keep chunking it down until you've got the actual steps in place. And you might think this is overkill, but this is where the magic actually happens, because once you've done it, you're going to then put in some checkpoints to measure your progress. Remember what I said at the beginning, what gets measured gets done. Build in some marker points to remind you what you've committed to and what you're meant to be doing. And they don't have to be complicated. One of the things I'm really passionate about is doing things, making things simple so they fit into your life, so don't overcomplicate things. And what I do for myself is I just put reminders in my phone. So if I need to, research a training program, then I'll decide when I'm going to do it, put a reminder in my phone, and then I know that I've got to have done it by then. And if I don't do it, the only person that I'm letting down is me. So I need to make sure that I do commit to them and do them. And the same goes for all the other things. So if I wanted to learn Italian, the first step was to download the app, so I'd put a reminder on my phone to pop up. And then all you have to do is work for a quarter at a time. You're not looking ahead, you work for a quarter. And then when that quarter's done, you look to your next quarter, which might be attend some webinars. You think, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do this, or I want to do something else. And you're allowed to change, because it's your plan. It's not set in cement. And by doing this, it will really help you to stay on track. And remember to keep reviewing and celebrating your success as you go along. So that is my process. How does everybody feel about that? I'd love to know what you think. Let's have some questions. Any questions? Do you think it works, or do you think it'd work for you? Is there anything that concerns you? Is there anything that you're a bit confused about? Yeah. Oh, I'm glad it's motivated you. Any questions at all? So the secret here is to just work your plan, work from quarter to quarter. Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat, sorry. It seems very simple, which is good. I pride myself on trying to uncomplicate things and make things fit into your life, because then you're more chance of actually doing things. Isn't life complicated enough without doing extra things? Definitely change if your priorities change. Definitely review as you go along. Oh, you like being allowed to take something off your list? Yeah, I'm giving you permission to do that. You don't need my permission, but definitely take things off your list if you don't want to do it anymore. Just if you're going to do it, do it. If not, get rid. And like I said, you can come back to it later. You don't have to take it off forever. Okay. So I would love to know how you get on. If anybody wants to share their development plan with me, please do. You can email it to me. If you want to, tell me how it works for you, I'd love to know. But before we finish today, I'll finish my sentence and I'll come back to the chat if that's all right. Before we finish today, I'd love to know what things that I can help you with in terms of your development for next year. So I'm planning these webinars, and I'm planning it for the full year. So if there's anything right now that you think, actually, I could really do with that, then please do let me know, and you can put it in the chat box now, and I will build that into the plan, so at least that's one thing that you've got covered. So if there's any issues that you've got or any things that you think, actually, I really could do with some help with that, I'm struggling with that area, then please feel free to put it in the chat, and I will build it into the plan. So while you're typing, I'm just going to go back to the chat. Part of your job is to enable people to be responsible for their own development. Any tips? So the way that I used to do that, and because I used to work in an L&D department as well, is I'd measure things, because like I said, what gets measured gets done, and I'd follow it up in terms of one-to-ones and in terms of your communication strategy. But also, I do it in terms of the way I'd motivate them, so the initial conversation that I'd have. So I'd paint the picture of the end goal, because once somebody really understands where they're heading and they can feel it and it's emotive for them, and they have a real strong why of where they're heading, they tend to drive themselves because they can visualise it so vividly. Because often the reason that people don't want to do their development is because they feel as though they're doing it for the company rather than themselves. So make it valid for them. So get them to really drill down into where they want to be and why, what's in it for them. I hope that helps. We've got for next year, prioritising delegating workloads, influencing change, dealing with confrontation, setting work objectives for yourself. Yeah. If there's any others, please feel free to put it in the chat box. But I will leave you now and just say thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you to all those people that have attended the webinars this year with me, and thank you for all the new people that have joined me today. I hope you continue to join me next year. I'd love to see you in the chat next year, and have a lovely Christmas and New Year, and I will see you in January. So take care. See you later.
Thanks very much, Barbara. And just to echo what she said there, thank you for attending today. I will drop an email out with a link to this, and obviously Barbara's contact details once we've got this recording available. And equally, if there's anything that you think of over the next few days, or even kind of going into next year that you'd like to see us either ask Barbara to do as a webinar or any of our other presenters, then please do drop me a line with that feedback, and we can make sure that either through Barbara or somebody else, that we're sourcing that for you. And again, to echo Barbara, we have one more webinar next week, but if you're not dialing into that, then I hope you have a wonderful couple of weeks left at work, a great Christmas break, and we look forward to speaking with you again in the new year. So thank you, everybody.